What I want to do today is talk about two books that I've been thinking an awful lot about for the last few months. One is The Idea of University, and this is John Henry Newman's classic work on education. It's the series of lectures that he gave when he was raising money for the Catholic University of Ireland. So these are basically fundraising tracts, which we know are good. And the other book I want to talk about is a book that was just published about a month ago. It's called Academically Adrift. Don't know if any of you have seen this. It's by the University of Chicago Press. And it's the results of the first massively data-rich long-term study that takes data from both the Collegiate Learning Exam, the CLA, which is a critical thinking exam, and the NESI, the National Survey of Student Engagement, which is a what students do on college survey. And it combines them together into a 4-year longitudinal study of about 2,500 students. And it asks the question, what characteristics do and do not correlate with students gaining in critical thinking from the beginning of their freshman to the end of their sophomore years, that period of their general studies education. And I want to talk about this, and I have a kind of a conceit that I have stolen from C.S. Lewis, which I'll get to in a minute, talking about the AlmaMatter, or the idea that Dr. Miller picked up on, and what exactly that means, and perhaps even what that doesn't mean. And that's sort of the roadmap, and I'm going to do a little bit of review of the knowledge-learning distinction that Clint was interested in. That was the topic of my last talk on this subject in the mission talk, but which you apparently missed.
Well, at least I forgot the whole thing.
Okay, Debbie is the advancer because I have a way to go there to advance. Try again. There we go. In the fourth and fifth lectures of The Idea of University, Newman draws a very important distinction between knowledge and learning, and says that education is what we do when we accomplish both, when we create an environment in which people can receive both knowledge and learning. And he uses the word, actually for learning, most often he uses the word advancement or enlargement. But knowledge is the collection of facts. Knowledge is what you can look up on Wikipedia, according to Newman. It's what you can write down. It's what you can put on a multiple choice exam. Those are the sorts of things that represent knowledge. Learning represents something else. And the last mission talk that I gave about November tried to really get to the heart of what that something else was, that enlargement or that learning. It has a lot to do with what we now call critical thinking. As you can see here, Newman saw them in a dialectical relationship. You had to have knowledge in order to acquire learning, and you had to have learning in order to acquire knowledge. So these are the dual purposes of a liberal arts education. One is to give people a foundation of facts that they can carry with them, answer questions on Jeopardy, use in their daily lives. The other, if you want to click again, Debbie, is to do something else, and something that for Newman is at the heart of what a true liberal education is supposed to be. This is my favorite book. When I read this to the ACCMU, the Catholic College presidents, I did this in DC about a month ago, they all just hooted at this, because this describes general education in most places in the country. I will tell you, gentlemen, what has been the practical error of the last 20 years. It has been the error of distracting and enfeebling the mind by an unmannerly profusion of subjects, of implying that a smattering in a dozen branches of study is not shallowness, which it really is, but enlargement, which it is not. And I asked the college presidents, how many of you could describe your general education program as an unmannerly profusion of subjects? And all the hands went up, because that is pretty much how we have defined the core curriculum. This is why I'm so excited about our new Newman Studies program that we're going to be talking about tomorrow in the board meeting. It does something more than just unmannerly profuses subjects. it gets to, I think, at least the beginnings of what Newman called enlargement. Click. And these are the four areas. And again, this is what I tried to present in some detail last time I talked about this, of what he means by enlargement. Enlargement is learning that is active, that is hands-on, that goes out and discovers, rather than learning that is passive, that simply washes over you the way that a television program might as you sit in the class and dutifully take notes. Enlargement encourages generalization. It's the skill of being able to take a fact or a set of facts or a process and put it into some other context. I remember one of the happiest moments of my life occurred when I was teaching freshman English, and we were going over logical fallacies, which is something we do often in freshman English. And one of my students came up and said, "I had a math class, and you know, I could use this stuff." And I'm like, yeah, that's generalization. You know, discovering the similarities between such radically different disciplines as sociology and social work, you know, history and political science, art and music. When you start learning things in one class that become useful to you in the other class, that's enlargement. It is interdisciplinary. Newman was very clear that enlargement cannot be produced in disciplinary silos. It can't be produced by just studying whatever the people who create course catalogs and aisles on bookshelves decide something belongs in. Enlarged learning has to go beyond that and forge connections between ideas. It's got to make those connections. The enlarged person ultimately is the person who knows what to do with the collection of facts and who knows how to get them, who knows how to keep learning. It's the sort of learning how to learn. And I would also say for Newman, and I agree with him here, loving the process. Learning to love the process of learning stuff. It is very similar to what we now call critical thinking or engaged learning. And it can't replace understanding some facts. Facts are a part of education. That's not why there's that dialectical relationship. You've got to know the facts. You've got to know what to do with them. And since Newman, we've invented the internet, and that whole dynamic has changed because it's put, in a way Newman could not imagine facts at our disposal. What Newman had to travel to, you know, the middle of India, not that he did, but would have had to discover, and would have taken him 2 years, I can now get on my cell phone by the end of this sentence. So we have now just a tremendous access to factual information, which makes it all the more important that our learning feature this enlargement, that our learning teaches what to do with the facts, how to situate them, how to argue about them, how to generalize from them. Because finding, and in just the 20 years that I've taught college writing, I remember the first time I taught college English, it was in 1990. And we were in a research library, and we had a paper, and this was a research paper that every freshman English student had to complete. And to do that, they had to have 10 whole sources. And we had these packets in the library that were designed to help them get to that incredible, awesome number of 10 whole sources about a subject like abortion or airplanes. You know, how can you possibly find 10 sources? And that was a real challenge. And the bulk of what I taught during that last fourth of the class was how to find facts. I don't even teach that anymore in college writing. I assume that they can go on to Google and go on to Wikipedia and have more facts than they can possibly use at their disposal while they should be listening to my lectures. Which ups the game a little bit because the fact finding is minimized now in how we teach, that understanding what to do with it, information literacy, does not correlate to the number of facts that one has at one's disposal. And that's the key educational challenge. Now, let's go on. I want to talk about my two governing images. One is the AlmaMatter. I have our little picture here of Maria. And Newman's quote, I love this quote, "A university is an alma mater, knowing her children one by one, not a foundry or a mint or a treadmill." The nourishing mother is the person who provides nourishment for the child, who supervises growth and development, who provides examples and role models for the child while developing, and who gives children what they need. And I know students are adults, but I'm deep with a metaphor. Okay, the other kind of controlling image here, click, is the indulgent grandmother. This is on my mother's refrigerator, and you can go look at it. What happens at grandma's stays at grandma's. And this is one of the great lessons in my adult life, was that a mother is nothing like a grandmother. When I was growing up, we could never eat cereal that had sugar in it. We could eat grape nuts. We could eat whole wheat cereals. My mom cracked her own wheat and made cracked wheat cereal. We couldn't watch TV more than a half an hour or an hour a day. We could never watch something violent or, for heaven's sakes, rated R. That was simply forbidden in our house. One of the reasons we moved here, one of the reasons I pursued job opportunities in this area was that my parents lived 2 hours away. And we were very interested in bringing our kids down to Enid, which we do regularly. About once a month we have contact now. And my mother is nothing like my mother. When we get there, she puts Porter in front of a TV, his own TV, and says, "Here, watch cable." We didn't have cable. She says, "Have some Captain Crunch. Can I bring you a bowl?" And she went to the store the other day, she brought back Rambo for him to watch. A grandmother is not the same as a mother, even if it's the same person. An indulgent grandmother is a fundamentally different creature. Now, I admit I stole this conceit from C.S. Lewis and his Problem of Pain, who said, "We want, in fact, not so much a father in heaven as a grandfather in heaven. A senile benevolence who, as they say, liked to see young people enjoying themselves, and whose plan for the universe was simply that it might be truly said at the end of each day, a good time was had by all." This is the grandfather in heaven, and this is the indulgent grandmother model of education and nourishment. Provides food, usually baked goods and sugar cereals. Does fun things. Wants mainly to be loved, and gives the students what they want. So the question I'm asking now is, are we at Newman University, are we in higher education in America, but specifically at Newman University, because this is where I am, are we modeling ourselves as an alma mater, a nourishing mother, or do the various enrollment pressures and different kinds of evaluative pressures, are they pushing us to become avia indulgence?
That's it.
That's it, yes. Are they pushing us to become a doddering and indulgent grandmother? And this is where this book comes in. Because this book is about indulgent grandmother. This book is about colleges and universities who want to be liked, who want their students to have a good time, who want enrollments, who want to, evaluation processes that reward professors or destroy their careers based on what is essentially a customer satisfaction survey, rather than a survey of any document, any kind of learning. And they have documented some pretty, let's go on to some pretty interesting results. So as I said, this is a book, it has a nice light-looking cover, but it's really a very intensive data-driven study because it's mainly charts and tables. Fully half of the book is just charts, methodological appendices. This is a very sophisticated study that took the data on the relatively new collegiate learning exam. And let's actually look at the collegiate learning exam. This is a complete game changer in how we evaluate and assess critical thinking. Because it's not a multiple choice test. It is an essay-scored exam, and it's graded by people who have very exact training in evaluating these kinds of essays. It has just an extremely high inter-rater reliability, but it is a hand-scored essay exam that does things like this. It says, "You're the assistant to Pat Williams, the president of Dynatech, a company that makes precision electronic instruments and navigational equipment. Sally Edwards, a member of Dynatech Salesforce, has recommended that Dynatech buy a small private plane. that she and other members of the sales force could use to visit customers. Pat was about to approve the purchase when there was an accident involving a SwiftAir 235. You are provided with the following documentation, and they give this documentation to the students. Newspaper articles, federal accident report, various emails, all of these things the students give. And the student has said, now, prepare a memo that addresses these questions. Should we buy this airplane? And then they write a memo about that. So this is way different than the previous name the subject of this sentence kind of exam. This is as close as we've ever come in the academy. And I actually heard, when it's being developed, I was at an ACNU meeting, and I heard the developer, whose name I have forgotten, who was former college president. They spent a lot of effort in developing this, and they spent a lot of time in scoring it, and it is extremely statistically reliable across the universities that use it. And they combined this, as I said, with a NESI, which just asks students kind of what they've done. Has everyone seen the NESI results? This will ask students, how many times have you gone on a foreign language trip? How many pages average do you write in class? It just asks them a bunch of questions like that. And we use that a lot for student engagement and also student satisfaction. And we've generally had pretty good results on the NESI, so we've used it a lot. The place that I am the most discouraged about when I read our NESI results, come on in. Not going to hurt anybody. Some significant findings of this study. Go on, Debbie. The study actually was a little bit bleak on how much learning is occurring in college. What they were able to do is take the freshman results, the entry results for students on how they perform on this critical learning examination, and then 2 years later look at the same students and see if they've made any gains in critical thinking. About half of the students in the study made no gains whatsoever, which is a stark. Now, a lot of students did, and we're going to talk about why. Gains in critical thinking, complex reasoning, and writing skills are either exceedingly small or empirically non-existent for a large proportion of our students. 36% of students experienced no significant improvement in learning over 4 years of, and this is learning, not knowledge. They know more stuff. They can cram more facts in their head. But 36% of students over 4 years did not, in a statistically significant way, improve their scores on the collegiate learning exam. Now let's get to this. Less than 1/2 of seniors had completed more than 20 pages of writing for a course in the prior semester. It's not a 20-page paper. This could be 4 or 5-page papers. But half of the students in the survey, give or take some, had not in the previous semester had a single course. And these are seniors. These are seniors. Had not had a single course in which they were required to write as much as 20 total pages. Students spend 16% of their times in course-related pursuits. Now, some other things. Students majoring in traditional liberal arts fields demonstrated significantly higher gains in critical thinking, complex reasoning, and writing skills over time than students in other fields of study. And 35% of the students sampled spent 5 hours or less a week studying alone. Okay, those are some findings, and those are the findings that have gotten a lot of play. I was driven to this book by the Chronicle of Higher Ed, and really so were others, because it may be the first basically unreadable statistical study to hit the Amazon bestseller list, because it got a lot. It got play in USA Today, it got play in the Chronicle of Higher Ed. It's been around. So I bought it and I read it, and I faithfully underlined lots of parts of it. And some of the things that didn't make it out, or what I want to talk about, some of the things that are in the book that didn't make USA Today, that are a little more encouraging. We can go on, Debbie. They keep, because they have the NESI data, they keep at least student perceptions of a number of faculty characteristics. Faculty availability, faculty approachability, which aren't quite the same things. You know, there's a lot of genuine niceness of faculty issues were, because all of this is in the NESI. If you look at the NESI, we have all of this available. And of all these faculty expectations, only one of them had a correlation with significant improvement on the critical learning exam, or the collegiate learning assessment is what it's called, the CLA. Now that is the expectations of the faculty. When faculty have high expectations, students learn more. That's the only one of all the Nessie's factors of what students think of faculty. The learning correlates not with who they like the most, but with who expects the most of them. We can go on next. And they even, because the Nessie breaks it down like this, they even were able to give some kind of quantitative measure for what constitutes high expectations in a class. And those high expectations, they say that the point, the tripping point, and you can see high expectations versus medium and low expectations in faculty expectations and in the amount of reading and writing required. And you can see the major differences there. Is 20 pages of writing over the semester and 40 pages a week of reading. This hit me just like a ton of grit. I called up all of my deans, and it was like 1 in the morning, and I'm like, none of them there. But this is real evidence here. There's real data that tells us at what point, and I'm sure 19 pages and 39 pages would do okay, but it gives us a tripping point. When do students start to really, really learn something that we can demonstrate by the best instruments that we have available to us? And it says that students, when they are expected to write 20 pages, not in a single assignment, but over the course of an entire semester, when they are expected to read it. I've always met the reading requirement in my classes. I haven't always met the writing requirement, because I like to be grandma. I want them to like me. I want to give them Captain Crunch. I'm going to click on again. So these are just some conclusions that I'm getting with my drawing conclusions from both Newman's idea of the university and this new book, Academically Adrift. And it is that we risk misinterpreting the idea of an alma mater, a nourishing mother, with the avia indulgence, the grandmother who wants to be loved, the grandmother who indulges the child, the faculty member who indulges the student, because hard work is hard. And the conclusion that I've come to, and I'm just starting moving down this path, I'm trying to correlate everything together, is that students are not best served by courses that do not make rigorous demands on their time and on their attention. And that our students deserve both our unconditional love and our high expectations. Because it is those high expectations that turn the indulging figure into the nourishing figure. Indulgent mothers sometimes ask you to eat vegetables. The alma mater must, I believe, ask its students, our students, because we love them and want the best for them, must ask them to achieve higher expectations than we've been doing so far. So that's kind of my presentation. That we have a responsibility not just to our students now, but to what they learn and for their futures. And that there is now beginning to emerge some fairly clear data-driven patterns for what that means. And it means more reading and more writing in the class. That's what teaches. That's the tripping point at which people actually learn. Any questions?